This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH. Coming up on this weekend's broadcast, we'll join a couple of farmer friends in the cab to see how things are looking in their fields. Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Agribusiness and June Dairy Month. Orion Samuelson called. He said, Max, get out the milk. It's Dairy Month.
Well, it's a tradition I'm happy to participate in, Max. The dairy farmers could use our support.
Cheers. Absolutely. I know you have a visit coming up about the economics of the industry that are pretty tough right now.
We do. In our market segment this week, we'll be talking with Ben Lane of Terrain, and we've seen some certain weakness in the dairy segment, and we'll talk about how Ben might see that improving as we get through the summer. But Max, before we do, we've seen weather challenges around the world, really, and farmers are getting after it.
Yes, we get to visit with two friends in the cab this weekend, about 7 time zones apart, as a matter of fact. This fellow is not far out of Chicago, Illinois. Here visiting with us is Dave Kestel, farmer there and also pioneer dealer in northern Illinois. I noted how dry it has been when I was in that region this week with nice winds in the daytime, sunshine, and a lack of moisture. What's the case in your fields?
Yeah, very dry. We've had a lot of east-northeast winds the last week, and I've got a weather station here, and I look at the humidity, and our humidity levels have been 15, 18%, just like desert dry. It's just, you can really feel it in the afternoon. There's just not, I mean, for you and I, it's comfortable, but boy, those little corn plants and soybean plants, they want some humidity, and it's been tough on them.
Now, overnight temperatures have eased back a bit. It's been downright pleasant in the evening or early in the morning. Has that worked to lessen the crop stress at all?
Oh, I'm sure it has a little bit. I mean, versus it being 80 degrees all night long, that you'll get in like a really hot spell. So, I mean, yeah, a sweatshirt at night feels pretty good in the evening outside, but it's just so dry. I mean, no dew in the morning or nothing dripping off the shed roof in the morning. It's just dry. And yesterday, there was some pop-up showers all the way around us. I had the mechanic here working on the planter. One end of it was settling down. He's trying to figure out what it was. And it was just thundering all the way around us all day long. We got 2 100ths of an inch. And just 6 miles east of here, a cousin of mine got 1.4 inches. So he was the lucky one yesterday.
Slim pickings at your place then, for sure. Now, if you had good moisture, and you had these hot temperatures, you'd be seeing the magic combination, right, with good plant growth?
Oh, God, it's unbelievable. The last few years, we've had good plant growth, and I put a stake in the field. And in 5-6 days, I've measured 16 to 18 inches of growth in the corn in 5 days. I mean, it's just incredible how fast it can grow under the right conditions.
What about herbicide effectiveness? What are you seeing there at this early stage of the game in your fields, around you and those of your customers?
Well, very little spraying has gone on around here post so far. It's just too dry, and the surfactants are going to stress the crop a little bit more. So I have not sprayed any post stuff yet. The pre's, we got a little bit of rain after we got done planting, and the pre's are holding everything back real well. And so I'm not going to spray. I'm going to hold off for a couple days and hopefully start side dressing maybe tomorrow. I got a guy coming that we work together on that, and hopefully get the corn side dressed, because if this pattern changes and we start getting some rain, I mean, it's going to explode. Then you won't be able to get across the acres fast enough.
Well, that would be the case for sure. What's the average height of the corn on your farm right now, Dave?
From probably the last stuff, maybe 4 inches tall, to the early stuff has got to be, I'd say, 10 inches tall by now. And for the stresses it's gone through here, well, honestly, since it's come out of the ground, it looks better than it should, I think.
We know this is going to be a big month in your family. We have heard that rumor, and we'll be staying in tune with you for further developments in the field and around the field on the Kestel Farm, south of Chicago. Always great to talk to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. You have a great day.
All right, Dave Kestel, our friend there, Manhattan, Illinois. Indeed, just a little bit south of Chicago, not far south of the city in that metropolitan area where there are a lot of pressures coming on the farms there by the expanse of the city, as you see in many areas of the country. Good pioneer dealer. He's worked with his farmers there in that part of northeast Illinois for quite some time. And Yeah, I didn't tell Dave. We'll be swinging by for some of Ma's cookies again one of these days as well. Great friend for a long time.
This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. The Firestone Ag Dealer Network offers you the support, inventory, and resources you need. Visit firestoneag.com to find your local certified dealer. It's time to turn our focus to the markets, and we saw the grain markets experience some pretty extreme volatility this past week between changing weather forecasts and the debt ceiling discussion in Washington, D.C. But for our market segment this week, we're going to recognize the start of June Dairy Month and talk dairy. Joining us is Ben Lane. He's the dairy analyst with Terrain. And Ben, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Dairy prices, Class 3 milk. Ben, I checked the futures market. It appears as though we are at the worst price since the COVID collapse in 2020. Fill us in on what's happened in the dairy market over the past 2 years.
Yeah, we're at a tough spot right now. Prices are way down. I think compared to this time last year, we're down 25% or so in that ballpark. It's gotten worse, I think, than a lot of people had expected in terms of milk price coming into this year, and it's stayed there for longer. So we're pushing into the midpoint of the year, and it's been a lot more pressure than we had expected. If we compare that to last year, we were setting record high prices, so Class 3 was breaking records. So a lot of this, it's painful just seeing how things looked compared to where they were last year. And if you compare it to the 5-year average, we're really fairly in line with reasonable milk prices. That's, of course, in a very different feed cost environment, everything, all the costs are more expensive this year. That's where a lot of the pressure is coming from, and just the pain of seeing how good it was last year compared to where we are now.
That's true. It's the reversal that's so staggering. And as you mentioned, that margin has been eroded as this milk price has come down. Ben, what's that done for milk production? Have we seen either the herd size shrink or production tail off?
We've seen production, it's increasing, but it's increasing at a pretty slow rate. So we're up marginally against last year, where it's pretty small gains. We're below our normal trend yield gains and cow number gains. But I think, still we're looking at, compared to 2 years ago, we're down. We're not making as much as we did at this point in 2021. So we're not gaining a whole lot in terms of milk production. There's some capacity limitations that's holding back the ability to expand. So production's not really growing that much. I think supply has been hanging in there, but in large part because the prices have come down. So I think because we're seeing lower prices, lower commodity prices, that's helped demand move, but it's been at that expense of lower prices.
Ben, the herd expansion, we're seeing record high prices for beef out there in the countryside. Would that be an incentive for a dairyman looking at these tight milk prices to perhaps liquidate some of the herd?
I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing higher cull rates. I think we're going to continue to see that. That is incentivized with these higher cull values. We've seen some limitations in the ability to expand. So I think there's already been a little bit of inability to expand, but especially in this situation where we've pushed several months into this year with really difficult margins, I think that incentive is even strengthened to start looking at some culling and scaling back a little bit.
You've mentioned a few times the challenges to expansion. Ben, to your mind, what are those biggest ones that are holding up growth?
Well, a lot of it is just milk buyers that aren't able to take additional loads of milk. And I think that was a lot of what helped us out last year, hit some of these record high prices. We were seeing high prices, but no one was willing to take more milk. So in a normal year, you might see really high prices like that. Producers might go full steam ahead and really expand and grow and try and capture those prices. This time there was a lot of limitations in the ability to take more milk. So producers were kind of limited by those stops. There was also low heifer inventories. We've kind of gotten better at managing heifer inventories. They're expensive to feed, and there's a lot of uncertainty there. So there isn't just the pipeline of replacements that are waiting for those expansions. So it's kind of held us back a little bit and helped us support that milk price a bit.
Ben, looking out over the summer, is there hope in your mind that these Class 3 milk prices, this drop will reverse?
I'm optimistic that we're getting near the bottom here. I think over the next couple of months, these are going to be some of the lows for the year. So I'm hopeful that the second half of the year, we'll start to see that pick up. And I think the catalyst for a lot of that is going to be some culling and some slower growth and maybe a slowdown in production. So it's really going to be more on the supply side that we're going to see some of that slowdown, unfortunately, but that should help to lift some of the prices.
All right, and that could impact demand as we go forward. Folks, stay with us. When we return, we'll get Ben's thoughts on what's coming with dairy demand. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. Harvey Firestone invented the first pneumatic farm tire, forever changing what it means to farm hard. Visit firestoneag.com to learn more about this history and tire solutions for today. Welcome back. We're talking about the dairy market with Ben Lane of Terrain. And Ben, you talked about the supply situation here in the first segment. I'd like to bring the focus to demand, starting with one of the chief concerns I hear from dairy producers, which is the slowdown in U.S. milk fluid consumption. But we're still eating plenty of dairy.
Yeah, we are. I think the fluid demand slowdown has been going on for decades, and that's something that I don't expect to reverse in a major way. And I do think that producers, when they see that, there's a natural tendency to link that, because that, in terms of dairy products, that looks closest to what they're producing and what they're putting on the milk truck and shipping off. And I think that's what they'd like to see consumed. Also, Class 1 prices are kind of by design the highest value of milk. So fluid milk is typically the highest value from a producer's point of view. But in reality, we're still consuming more milk in terms of cheese and yogurt and butter, ice cream, all sorts of products. When we put that all together and think about what that adds up to in milk equivalent, consumers are still consuming on a per capita basis more milk than they have before. So I think it's still a positive in total demand and in total volume demand, and it's just kind of a shuffling up and a little bit of a change in how we're doing that and what form it's taking.
You know, one of the interesting changes that's happened here in my lifetime is the push towards more natural butter on plates. Ben, has that been an impactful thing to butter demand?
Yeah, that definitely helped. I think around 2014, we saw sort of a change in the way that consumers viewed the health benefits of butter. We saw it showing up on menus more. It was more highlighted, and I think that's continued to be a strong point for fat values especially, and it's really changed the product mix a bit, and it's been a big benefit for dairy.
Has that demand stayed strong since that 2014 switch?
Yeah, it has stayed strong. We've seen strong growth. I think it's not the same boost that we saw initially, but it is still helping fat values to maintain some premium over protein and other solids and things like that. So fat is still a valuable component here in the U.S., and it's a big driver of the way producers think about producing valuable milk.
Well, and cheese, of course. If you talk about fat, are Americans still consuming a ton of cheese here?
They are, a lot in the form of pizza, but all sorts of things. Cheese demand total is up. It continues to grow. It's been a real positive, and of course it takes about 10 pounds of milk to make 1 pound of cheese. So as long as people are consuming more cheese, I think that's a positive in terms of an outlet for milk in the market.
Ben, over the past couple of years, well, really since the pandemic got started, we've seen U.S. dairy exports appear to accelerate. Is this a trend that's long-lasting in your mind?
I think we're going to test that a little bit this year. So we have had a couple of really strong years, and that's been positive, setting records, and especially cheese has had a pretty good growth. I mean, we've historically looked at the export market as we kind of skim the cream for butter, and we try the skim milk for powder and put that out on the export market and see what happens. But in the last several years, we've gotten much better at developing high-value products and pushing things like whey proteins or cheese now increasingly on some of the export markets, and that's a good outlet for milk, and it's a higher value proposition. So I think it's a benefit for the dairy market. I think this year it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. We were at a discount to the global markets, our competitors like the EU and New Zealand, the last couple of years, which helped with us seeing some of that strong growth. Right now we're a little bit more in line, so we'll see if we can help carry some of that momentum into this year. So far we've started off pretty strong, but I think we're going to put that to the test a little bit, see if we can keep seeing those strong gains, or at least hang in there. I think we're still going to see product move, but it might not be as much of a significant jump over the last year as we've seen a couple of years ago.
You mentioned the EU and New Zealand, both competitors for the U.S. in the global milk trade. Is their growth stopped with their environmental concerns going forward?
Well, New Zealand has largely stopped. I mean, any given year they're going to have seasonal or weather-related changes that are going to make one year better than the other. But in terms of the rapid growth that we saw over the last several years, that's pretty much capped. They're seeing a lot of freshwater regulations, things that are really kind of limiting their ability to expand at all from here. So I think they're mostly capped. They've kind of hit their capacity on the dairy side. They'll still be an important player, but they're not going to be a growing player like we had seen. The EU is going to slow down, but they're still always going to be a competitor. But it'll be an opportunity for the U.S. going forward.
Opportunity for U.S. exports, maybe grab some of that market share. Ben Lane, Terrain, thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you.
Colby Ag Tech is brought to you by Copperhead Ag Products. Visit copperheadag.com for more information. Chad Colby this week, the pursuit of better internet access is up on the roof and going through the wall.
It's certainly great having all the connectivity of our smartphones, but a lot of times when we get back to our offices or maybe to our home or our ranch, the internet has been such a big challenge. The challenge becomes we're out in rural America. Over the last several years, there's been a lot of companies work hard on a solution for that. Maybe it's a rural broadband network in your area that's kind of got you through that. Even our smartphones have a pretty good hotspot on them now if you're close enough to that good cellular service. But something new that we've talked about here on This Week in Agribusiness over the last couple years is satellite internet from a company called Starlink or SpaceX. You hear about all these rockets going up, right? Well, what they're doing is they're putting satellites in low Earth orbit. Here behind me on the roof of my home, you can see I've got this, I don't know, cookie sheet looking device that actually tracks satellites. It's the Starlink receiver. I've had it on my home now for about a week. The negative part is it took me a year and a half to get it here in central Illinois. Do some homework yourself. One of the things that I notice is there's a lot of farmers, a lot of ranchers in rural America already using what I have on my home with great success. If you go to Starlink's website, you can see that they've really expanded their service. You find your location where you live. One thing I do want to point out is they offer a lot of different mounting solutions. Here on my home, I had to get a plate and a kit to get the cable through the masonry brick on the side of my home. The cool part is they have all those things. It was very easy for me to install it. The best part about the system, though, is how great it works with your smartphone. And what I mean, the setup, how to set up your router in your house, all of those things are super, super easy. I'm only about 1 week into this system, and I can tell you right now, it was a huge step up from my old broadband system that I used. And it looks like speed-wise, it's about 3 times as fast, which we all know that's a great thing. So if you're looking for another internet solution on your farm and ranch, definitely check out Starlink. This is something now that's going to be in the mainstay, and I can tell you this, from my perspective, it works very good. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Now that's an installation kit. Let's take one more look at that masonry routing kit. My, Chad must have the biggest bits on the block now after
I tell you,
Starlink.
You got to have a drill with some horsepower to put that through. Our thanks to Chad Colby for that update on Starlink. Agriculture across this great country is incredibly diverse, Max, isn't it?
It is. And as we bring you Ag States of America, Charlie Behrens looks at a state that has a thumb on the map, but not the one he came from.
The United States of America can be very different from one state to another, but one thing every state has in common is agriculture.
Hey everyone, I'm Charlie Behrens and welcome to the Agricultural States of America, where we take a close look at what farmers are growing in each state. Some of you may already know about some of these things, other things may come as a surprise, but in any case, we hope everyone can appreciate the great products farmers are producing across America. Today we are talking about Michigan. Now, being from Wisconsin, it is hard for me to share this next fact. Michigan is sometimes called the Mitten State, because if you look at a map, the lower peninsula of the state is shaped like a mitten, or some people claim, after a few too many drinks at the supper club. Whereas if you look to their super cool neighbor to the west, it is plain to see who the true Mitten State is. Anyway, like most Midwestern states, Michigan produces several familiar Midwestern products such as eggs, pork, beef, corn, soybeans, and dairy products. But unlike most Midwestern states, Michigan's agriculture industry is incredibly diverse, with more than 300 crops, fruits, and vegetables. Michigan is #1 in the nation for several unique crops, including black beans, cranberry beans, small red beans, cucumbers for pickling, tart cherries, chestnuts, winter squash, turnips, and asparagus. Yes, the vegetable that's good for you and makes your pee smell funny. In Oceana County on the western side of Michigan, the loam soil is dominated by sand particles, but it also has just enough clay and sediment to provide structure and fertility. Turns out it is a perfect soil and climate to help the state grow about 20 million pounds of asparagus each year, making Oceana County the asparagus capital of the nation. It's also home to the National Asparagus Festival, which includes a parade and annual crowning of the Asparagus Queen. True Midwest royalty right there. Michigan is also #1 in tart cherry production, growing more than 75% of the entire U.S. tart cherry crop. Not to be confused with sweet cherries, tart cherries are known for their constant bright red color and tart flavor that is ideal for jams, pies, and other desserts. Each year, the state celebrates its cherry achievements with the National Cherry Festival over the 4th of July, where they crown a cherry queen. And now I've seen it all, okay? You got an asparagus queen, you got a cherry queen. I mean, what's next? A dairy queen? I'm hungry. Who's hungry? Michigan farmers are also known around the world for growing a variety of dried edible beans. And believe it or not, Michigan celebrates its bean prowess with an annual bean festival over Labor Day weekend. And before you ask, the answer is yes, they also have a queen, the Bean Queen. Sticking with the queen theme, apples are one of the largest, most valuable fruit crops in Michigan. The state is ranked 3rd nationally and grows nearly 1 billion pounds each year. Processors in the state use apples to make pies and applesauce, apple juice, and even apple cider. And yes, as you could have guessed, Michigan has an apple festival and an apple queen. No, I am not kidding. They also have a sugar queen, a pickle queen, and a burger festival, which does not have a queen. And frankly, I'm a little disappointed in Michigan. Let's pick up the slack there, okay? Now, Michigan has so many products and we have so little time, so I'm just gonna roll off a list of the top 50 or so for a quick glance. And if you're wondering, the ones with an asterisk mean they too have a queen. Who needs a royal family when you have Michigan? And for a second, can we just circle back to this whole mitten state debate? Okay, if you look closely at a map, Wisconsin by far looks like a mitten with Door County as the thumb. Okay, does Michigan have that? No, and we are nearing the end of the list. Tomatoes, cabbage, and turkeys, there you go. Agriculture oligarchy at its finest. All right, that's all the time we have for now, but as always, go to pivotbio.com/AG states to explore more about the agriculture of your favorite states and test your knowledge to win great prizes and a whole lot more. All right, I'm Charlie Behrens. We will see you next time on the Agricultural States of America.
Our thanks to Charlie for the great tour of a great ag state, made possible by our friends at Pivot Bio. We appreciate that. We'll continue this series over the next several weeks. A lot of great crop variety in Michigan.
You know, and that's what amazes me. And Max, I've got to say, I'm disappointed in myself. I haven't spent much time with the agriculture of that state, but I know you've had some pretty cool experiences in Michigan.
Oh, it's been great. One day I was on the radio in Chicago and this guy called me from Western Michigan. I said, "What are you doing out in the field?" He said, "I'm harvesting grapes out here." Quite a bit of grape production. I mean, all kinds of fruit produced there, and some of the earliest agritourism operations out of that Western Michigan region. Herb and Liz Teichman, great folks there, had an operation there producing peaches and apples and plums and cherries. Sponsored every year what was called the Cherry Pit Spit competition.
Oh,
yeah.
Did you get to participate?
No, sir. No. I stayed out of that celebrity Cherry Pit Spit. But one thing the Teichmans did was to plant a tree for you out there. You could have your own fruit tree and then come visit it during the summertime, have a picnic under your tree, and then in the fall come and harvest the produce.
That is a very cool idea, and bringing those urban consumers out to the farm to experience agriculture, always neat to see.
It wasn't just a matter of selling a commodity, but selling an experience. You can continue to watch our series here, Ag States of America. The weeks ahead, you can check it online too, pivotbio.com/ag states. There's more coming up here. Stay with us. This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH. Welcome back here to this weekend's edition of This Week in Agribusiness. We spent a minute or two here looking at a controversy in Europe this weekend.
Yes, indeed, Max. In fact, two controversies. Two laws being pushed by the European Parliament are working to really rile up the ag industry. There's one called the Nature Law and there's one called the Chemical Law. And the Nature Law, basically, they want these countries to restore damaged agricultural land. And Max, it's got farmers worried, a sentiment I know you've heard.
Yeah, that's been in the headlines, to be sure, Mike. The problems with some farmers in Europe that they've been encountering there, and protests in the streets have taken place as a result. Let's find out more about it as we visit with our friend Heinrich Kerkhoffs, who farms in Belgium. And I would suggest, Heinrich, you probably know as many farmers in the United States as I do. You've been here many times. You and your wife, Anita, have been out on farms and ranches all across our land. You know a lot about our business, as a matter of fact, and we always appreciate communicating with you. It's great to have you on the broadcast this weekend.
Thank you, Max. Good to see you again. We love coming to the U.S. for sure.
It shows. First of all, about your growing season over there, we have some fields in the U.S. that have been drying out, getting way too dry, and then you've got some other extremes as well. How would you describe the situation on your farm in Belgium there?
Well, we have had a wet spring up till 2 weeks ago, but now it's drying out fast. But we're still good for the moment.
When you look at what has been going on with these farmer protests, take us back a little bit. Give us just a little bit of the foundation for understanding what is going on. Why are farmers upset, especially in the Netherlands?
Well, they made new rules for the nitrogen deposition of livestock farms. If you live close to nature with your farm, you cannot hold any animals anymore. So they have to close down those farms. And the closer you are to the nature, the worse it gets.
We had heard that some farmers had taken their lives because the situation had become so desperate. Is that in fact the case, Heinrich?
Yes, it is, because some farms got new permits only a few years back, but now they changed the regulations, and those farms threaten to be closed down now. So they made their investment for 20 or 25 years, and yeah, they're in a tight spot now.
Is there any hope that this whole thing can be turned around, or is this a part of the environmental steamroller that can't be stopped?
Well, I'm afraid this time, really, because the election is over here. It's next year. In the Netherlands, there has been an election, but regional, and the big parties lost a lot of votes. But up till now, there are no changes in regulations.
Obviously, the feeling among the farmers is that if these changes were to be made, and I suppose it could be argued that it's going to the extreme, but if they were to be made, it needs to be a slower transition, right?
Slower, yeah, but they should change the regulations, because in the neighboring countries, there are almost none in compared to what we have here over here. We
notice the old stars and stripes over your left shoulder there. It's great to see the American flag in your shop. We need to, some weekend, I want to have you give us a tour of your shop there near Riemst, in Riemst, Belgium.
Yeah. Chad Colby has been here already, so he would do the tour, I guess.
Yes, of course Chad Colby has been there. We'll get there someday. Tell your foreman, Anita, that we said hello, and thank you for joining us this weekend, Heinrich. We sure appreciate it.
Thank you, Max. Well, in a few weeks, you can hug her yourself.
We look forward to that. We sure do. Heinrich Kerkhoffs, our farmer friend in Riemst, Belgium, checking in, talking about the very serious situation among some in the agriculture community in Europe.
Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead, presented by Pivot BioProven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot BioProven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
Well, here's a tease. In the second Greg Solier weather segment, we may learn that it'll be a tale of two worlds in the U.S. Corn Belt this summer. Stand by for that. Let's begin by looking at the Northwest, where I have to note the Washington Post pointed out this week all of that smoke coming down.
Yep.
Canada bakes and burns,
Yes.
WAPO said.
Yeah.
No less an authority than the Washington Post.
The boreal forest, mind you, of Canada, responsible for that. And it's kind of been hindered somewhat, that smoke debris that you've seen through the southern Canadian prairie, through the Dakotas, and points east and south with more of a west to southwest upper level wind flow. But yeah, that pattern of dryness and drought likely to continue on across a good chunk of the Canadian wheat belt and points north and west from there. Pretty benign setup, a little change in the weather maps and charts, kind of a boundary here separating some degree of very warm, dry air, save for an errant thunderstorm into the southwest Canadian prairie weather system and some weak troughiness into the northwestern reaches of the country where, big deal, nothing going on, may spark one of these orographic dry-based showers and thunderstorms to divide on westward, stray sprinkle and shower northern California, pretty mild outdoor work environs into Washington state, and it's here where we may serve up a couple of gusty thunderstorms. Saw that farther south into parts of Nebraska, western Kansas last week, all or nothing with the downpours and basically baseball-sized hail. That's the way you do it this time of the year, early summertime off the high plains. Unusually deep upper air trough for this time of year in early June across the southwestern sections of the country. You normally don't see this. You see the hot ridge, but it's kind of inverted this year. We sparked a couple of thunderstorms. Yeah, there's been some localized nibbling away at the drought in small areas of the high plains, but otherwise daytime heating, put a little moisture into it. Off to the races you go with a couple of showers and thunderstorms. Mountain base, the orographic lift, the daytime heating, the diurnal setup as we call it. The trough lifts a little bit later into the week. Still a couple of thunderstorms across the Sierra. We're down to under 30 inches water equivalency, by the way. The runoff potential out of the Sierra snowpack. A couple of thunderstorms to the southwest and some heat as you would expect, but nothing out of control across the central and southern plains in a thunderstorm or two.
A lot of people talking about that heat with so much of it arriving so early. Give us a closer look at the heartland here.
And it's been kind of inverted, you know, Canadian prairie, the northern plains, the upper Midwest. We finally last week saw some 90-degree weather into parts of the central Corn Belt. Yeah, in the midst of abnormally dry. Yeah, moderate drought expanding here. And of course, back to the western Corn Belt as well. The core of the heat for early on in the week from the Black Hills to the east and the south, tempered with a couple of thunderstorms. We do get a wedge of cooler air through the Great Lakes region, but it's low afternoon humidity, no organized rainfall. This may be the pattern shift we're looking at here, with thunderstorms beginning to ride the crest of the ridge northwest to southeast and should favor going forward mid to late June the eastern Corn Belt. And here's the expanding heat over the northern and central plains, an errant thunderstorm for the divide on westward. Here's a reflection of that southwestern trough, some shower activity across the Gulf Coast, pretty quiet weather pattern across the Delta and lower Mississippi Valley region. The heat builds on northward, the humidity as well along this boundary. A couple of showers and thunderstorms, including the Oklahoma Panhandle, West Texas. You got bombed away last week in some big storms, and across the desert southwest as well.
Show us the eastern part of the U.S., sir.
All right, here we go across that part of the country. Lingering cool air across the northeast of New England with some wet weather, a stray shower thunderstorm on that backdoor cold front again, heading through the Great Lakes region. And it's pretty quiet, warm, dry again across much of the eastern Corn Belt. The pattern shift begins to get going here, going forward for mid to late June in the upper Midwest with a couple of showers and thunderstorms. Southeastern states, yeah, that Memorial Day weekend was pretty crummy. Widespread rains over the southeastern part of the country. Florida's seen some drought improvement. Extreme conditions here. A couple of showers and thunderstorms in through South Texas. And here's the pattern here as the week wears on. More rainfall for the southeastern part of the country. Humidity climbs across the Delta. A couple of thunderstorms in through Texas.
Greg Solier is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country, presented by Pivot BioProven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot BioProven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
So, who gets the rain of the week ahead? Let's find out. Greg, show me your map.
Here we go, off to the races, and there ain't much to speak of again in the eastern Corn Belt. Do not fret, do not panic. This is not the way the entire summertime season goes, at least for the eastern Corn Belt. Late in the week, a couple of thunderstorms that get going across the Dakotas. Prior to that, late in the week as well, by the way, down through the southern states, in through areas of Florida. Welcome rainfall here, and as the week wears on, a couple of thunderstorms in through Oklahoma and Texas. We do see new storms forming here and propagating northwest to southeast into into the eastern Corn Belt, northern reaches as well late in the week. Unusual setup with thunderstorms and perhaps some healthy downpours in the southwestern part of the country. Scant moisture Pacific Northwest. It'll be this area with time that does build into the southern plains and then into the Ohio Valley here in the weeks to come. So hang in there, eastern Corn Belt locales.
Well, for the week of the 12th, what do the temps look like? How warm?
Yeah, they're getting up there. There's going to be a little stress if you haven't seen it already for parts of the upper Midwest down through sections of the eastern Corn Belt. Nothing out of control in readings here, and even up and towards areas of the Sioux and the upper Midwest, readings may be pushing the 90-degree mark. No real out of control temperatures. Cloud cover and moisture keeps readings below average southern plains and southwestern sections of the country. And yeah, there may be some additional localized drought relief with a better than average number of thunderstorms for the plains, the southwestern states too. Weakening ridge to the upper Midwest, drying out for the northeast of New England, and more wet weather and maybe a little tropical feature offshore of Florida heading through the mid-stretch of the month.
Summer arrives on the 21st, that week of the 19th. How warm will it be as we welcome in the new season?
Kind of feeling like it ought to be over the eastern two-thirds of the country. Yeah, some 90-plus degree weather here. Down to the delta as you expect out through the divide. A little bit cooler than average for California and sections of the Pacific Northwest. And we'll get into some dry time here. Moisture picks up again. Texas, Oklahoma into the plains and western Corn Belt locales. This will be probably the last of organized wet weather here as we move deeper into summertime. A little tropical system down through Florida. Dry weather again for the St. Lawrence River Valley, the Northeast, and New England.
Last organized weather right through the heart of the country. I gather it's going to get drier there in the western Corn Belt as the season goes on. How's the warmth then for that final week of June?
Here we go. From a temperature standpoint, the warm to hot ridge breaks down finally. We get some troughiness across the Pacific Northwest, sections of the northern plains. Still some degree of heat over the southeastern half of the country, but even here, nothing really out of control. Humidity dew points certainly will be on the climb and rise. With the last of thunderstorms moving from the upper Midwest to the eastern Corn Belt, there'll be wetter weather as we welcome in July.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
I can hear it now. Some of you are saying, wait just a minute, I've seen that tractor before. It's been in the shed before. Max's Tractor Shed brought to you by Mystic Lubricants. Mystic Lubricants are made to make it last. All right, I admit, 4.5 years ago, this International 656 was featured here. It happens to be the tractor that Sonny Perdue's dad had. Yes, that's Sonny Perdue, former U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, now Chancellor of the University of Georgia. The first time I saw this tractor, Governor Perdue had just seen that tractor restored. Well, there is more to the story, and I'll be sharing that at the banquet at the Red Power Roundup, Grand Island, Nebraska. That's coming right up. It'll be the 15th through the 17th at Fauner Park. There at Grand Island, the central part of the state, a big event. And the afternoons, that Thursday, Friday afternoon, Lee Cloncher, respected author and photographer, and I will be on the program. And then Friday evening at the banquet, I'll share, as Paul Harvey would have said back in the day, the rest of the story of that International 656. Let's see what's selling this week at Big Iron Auctions. Here is Mark Stock.
Well, Max, we're into June, and we've got some feeder cattle selling on Tuesday. If you're looking for heifers and steers from 600 to 850 pounds, they'll sell to the highest bidder. We've also got some land selling in Reno County, Kansas for the Judy Trust here on June the 6th. And we have the Pharaoh Influence female sale June the 6th as well. June the 7th, a big sale of over 2,300 items will sell. And on June the 8th, the Dan Wiedenfeld Estate sale featuring late model Case International tractors, late model John Deere Combine, and late model John Deere Planter. Just a super lineup. Dan passed away at the age of 49 years old. Please support the family on the Dan Wiedenfeld Estate sale here on June the 8th. Now, we also have the big classic car sale that is coming around the corner in Carthage, Illinois. If you've got a classic car you would like to sell, please get a hold of your area Big Iron or Sullivan Auctioneer rep. We're also going to be at the Half Century of Progress Farm Show and in Decatur at the Farm Progress Show, and we're planning a huge auction built around those events. So if you would like to have your collector or classic tractor sold during the time period, we encourage you to get a hold of your area rep. Again, go to the BigIron.com website, Max, for all the latest information.
Our FFA chapter tribute is brought to you by Pioneer, developing new generations of seed innovations for new generations of farmers. Pioneer, what's next happens here. We're meeting that next generation of ag leaders. Katie Powell, the Virginia State FFA Sentinel, joins us this week. Katie, thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us, what was it that prompted you to join FFA in the first place?
Yes, so I actually didn't grow up living on a farm, not really your typical ag kid, but I was babysat by some of our family friends who owned and operated an orchard, vineyard, beef cattle operation, as well as some local produce. So growing up, I was always super involved with them, always at the house helping pick produce. So I got involved with that at a fairly young age. Around 6th grade, I started taking agriculture classes and actually took on jobs at that farm. That really pulled me into agriculture and spurred my interest in that before I joined FFA in 8th grade.
And now, of course, you're serving as the Sentinel for the state. And Katie, what are the roles of the Sentinel?
Yes, sir. So as Sentinel, our main job is just to make sure that everyone's comfortable. So making sure there's order during banquets, meetings, conferences, as well as making sure that everyone is comfortable, happy, safe. We're just the people that are making sure that everyone's having a great experience and having a good time.
That's what it's all about. Having a great time keeps those members in FFA. That's Katie Powell, the Virginia State FFA Sentinel.
Well, having visited with farmers of the cab a little bit earlier, it's a pleasure now to get a little different perspective on what's going on in the fields. From the president of North America Crop Science for Bayer, Jackie Applegate. Jackie, it's great to see you again.
Hey, Max, it's so great, and thank you so much for having me on during this busy time of the year.
I know you stay in close contact with the teams out in the field. What are they telling you? What are you hearing about the sense of progress here and the feelings their farmers have?
Well, I'll tell you what, as you know, Max, planting time is always a really exciting time of year, and we're always committed to being out there in the market and helping our customers every step of the way. And you know what? It's really great to see that we've had a great planting season. We got seed in the ground across all of our key crops. And I think the farmers' sentiment is positive because we probably got more acreage in the ground as ever, but and I know we always need a little good rain and a little moisture to get that emergence out. And as we really reach this home stretch, it's always important to focus on, what we just accomplished, but our work ahead. But even during this busiest times of year, all of us in Bayer want to take the chance to remind each and every one of our farmers out there, to take a moment and to reflect on the safety and take care of yourself. Because, fundamentally at this time of year, we're working around machinery. We ourselves, just as our farmers, you got a lot of people out and about, and it's that time of year, to focus on safety.
That farm workplace is also the living place for many of our farm families, and it just seems like there's so many places where we can get into trouble, whether it's in the field or along the road around the farmstead. But you're always concerned about watching out for farmers. I know that's a theme of yours.
Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, farm safety is always top of mind. In this busy time of year, it's really important that also we remind farmers to focus also on their personal health, because we're all busy. You're out there, you're working hard in the heat. And that focus that we have in Bayer is really focused on our overall vision as a life science company, which is health for all, hunger for none. So it's really important for us that we remind farmers that although we're an agricultural-based company, we consist of a portfolio of being a consumer health company and a pharmaceutical company. And we have products that are out on the market like aspirin and Aleve that are also there, with aspirin being a key element of protecting heart health. And, so what we always encourage farmers to do, and this is a focus of Bayer Crop Science and Bayer overall, is on heart health. So we're really encouraging farmers to go out to the on the internet to checkyourheartrisk.com and utilize the risk assessment tool we got out there to gain valuable insights on their heart health. Also, I want to state that in the activities that you're going to see in the season, Bayer will be also having events where farmers can actually be checking their heart health live and, and providing products to them so that they can be utilizing. Because what's really important is to be focusing on safety when you're working on the farm, but also in heat and under stress to also be focusing on your heart health and your overall personal health.
We need every farmer. Keep an eye on each other. And thank you, folks at Bayer, for helping remind us about those important matters. Dr. Jackie, great to see you again. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jackie Applegate joining us here this weekend. Mike, President of North America Crop Science at Bayer.
Well, thanks for that, Max. There's a lot to look forward to when it comes to our ag suppliers, but there's a lot coming in agriculture generally.
Yeah, the week ahead, it's World Pork Expo at the Iowa State Fairgrounds in Des Moines. And not unlike the dairy business, these are challenging economic times for the folks who put pork on our fork.
They certainly are, and I'll be there talking to pork producers next week at the World Pork Expo.
We look forward to seeing you here next week. So long.
This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by Omax Communication in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.